Hey guys, this is your fiery friend the Infernoman here, and if you're into games, you're right where you need to be. But before we get into it, if you like the content that I put out there, I would greatly appreciate it if you hit me up with a like, or even better, subscribe to me. It really shows that people do care about my content. Now, if you have questions, comments, stuff you'd like to see played or discussed, you can @me on Twitter or chat directly with me as I stream 2 to 3 times a week on Twitch. A visual link for those are up on the screen right now, and I will have direct links in the details below. And for today's deck tech, we're going to be going over a deck that I'm calling Scuteshift. Yeehaw! Yo yeah, we're going to be looking at wrangling up a bunch of lands to trigger off our Ruin Crabs, or make a big Scoot Swarm. And if we need to speed up the things up, we've got Scuteshift to blow up our lands and trigger off everything that'll help secure our win. Now, as always, here's how we're going to break this down. We'll be covering the creatures in the deck first, then we'll cover the non-creature spells, the land base if applicable, the sideboard. We'll have a couple of matches today with Sparky to show you both the main way and the alt way to win with this deck. And of course, if you like this deck, a way to actually play it on a budget. The only reason I'm saying it this time is because, if you haven't noticed, this is all jank, but it is definitely non-budget. Just fair warning on that. All right, let's go ahead. Let's get started. Now to begin, let's go over exactly what the game plan is trying to do. We're going to be using 12 creatures in this thing. Mainly, you'll need in the very beginning of your opening hand either the Scoot Swarm or the Ruin Crab. You probably have seen Ruin Crab before. I've talked about it in another budget deck that I've done. Basically, it's a landfall trigger of whenever a land enters the battlefield, you mill your opponent out for 3 cards. Ideally, this is plan A to the deck. Get your crab out and start milling them. Plan B to the deck is going to be using Scoot Swarm. So if, say, like your opponent is going to start going big, we can go wide. Scoot Swarm, as you see right here, also has a landfall trigger of its own. So whenever a land enters the battlefield, you need to create one of these cute little 1/1 green insect creature tokens. Now, if you control 6 or more lands, you get to start making copies of Scoot Swarm. And you've probably seen it already before. This thing goes huge and wide quickly if your opponent doesn't take it out. But obviously, with one of these 2 creatures, that's only 4 copies of each, so that's not enough. That's why we're going to be playing also Glasspool Mimic. Glasspool Mimic actually pulls double duty in this deck. Since it's a shape-shifting rogue, you can actually have it be a copy of a creature when it enters the battlefield. So you can either make it a extra Ruin Crab, an extra Scoot Swarm if we need one, whichever is flexible, and even better, it can come in as a land, which also synergizes very well with the game plan. But that's basically it for the creatures. Literally, you do need, however, one of these in your opening hand. I cannot stress that enough, because if you don't, the deck kind of struggles a little bit. But to help us get those landfall triggers off faster, after you get one of these out, let's actually go now to the non-creature spells. Now, as for your non-creature spells, we've got a couple things we're going to be using here. In the main deck, we're going to be using 4 copies of Dive Down. This is mainly just to protect our small amount of creatures that we have, and we just want to make sure that we keep them alive as long as possible. Giving things hexproof is very beneficial, but the +3 to their defense actually doesn't hurt too well either, as that allows you to at least chump block for a turn. So it's very flexible depending on whatever you need it for. Beanville may look a little weird here, but it does pull also some double duty as well, like the Glasspool Mimic. Being able to weaken your opponent's creatures for 1 turn if they try to go wide can sometimes buy us enough time to at least finish off our opponent, or it allows us to chump block with maybe our Scoot Swarm. And of course, since it can come in as a tapped land, this still helps us trigger off landfall. Both Growth Spiral and Explore, 4 of the Growth Spiral, but only 2 of the Explore, is going to basically be about 6 of the same thing. You're drawing a card, and you just get to play an extra land for the turn. Just really nice to have, and it just helps us speed up our game plan. Saw it coming as a brand new addition thanks to Kaldheim, mainly because we just wanted a couple more things that we can do in the 2-turn slot. So say like you don't have a landfall trigger to go off with Explorer Growth Spiral, you don't have what you need for that, maybe mana-wise. So instead, you can also use Saw It Coming, as you can foretell it for the turn and then save it for later on in the game when you actually do need a counter spell. This is just another way of protecting our combo from going off. Into the story, we're going to jump to real quick, may look expensive at 7 mana, but remember that it costs 3 less to cast if an opponent has 7 or more cards in their graveyard, and this just helps us refuel our hand. So with the milling that we do from the Ruin Crab, Into the Story in theory should be able to help us refuel by turn 4 if we absolutely needed to. But even if you pay full price for it for 7 mana, normally since this is getting out a lot of lands very quickly, it's not going to be too bad actually to play full price for it. And of course the namesake for the deck, Scapeshift. Scapeshift for 4 mana, that's sorcery speed. You get to sacrifice any number of lands. Search your library for up to that many lands and put them onto the battlefield tapped. Then you get to shuffle your library. So in other words, as soon as you get your Scapeshift and say like you have the Ruin Crab there, blowing up all your lands ideally should be able to get you off enough triggers to finish off your opponent. Remember that in order for this to work, however, you will have to take a little bit of a risk and you will need to blow up all of your lands. You want to try to maximize the amount of triggers on the stack you can get with Scuteshift. But that's basically going to be it for the non-creature spells. You want to, again, get your lands out as soon as possible, get your landfall triggers, protect your combo pieces, and then finish them off with Scuteshift. Hopefully, if your opponent is tapped out, this should be a lot easier to do, but just be mindful, you don't need to immediately Scuteshift off if you have a better way of winning. Now, as for the land base, we do have quite a bit now. 26 lands, if you're not counting, of course, your flip creatures and other spells that can also become lands. We actually have a big mixture of stuff here. First off, let's go over the rares real quick that you'll really need. You can make this budget if you need to, which we will talk about at the end of the video, but I really insist that you want to try to get your rare lands in here as much as possible. Some forests, some islands, which will also be good with our Fable Passage. Remember that we want those landfall triggers to go off, so that's why we actually have a full play set of them, and we want to actually have a decent amount of basic lands. You will also include 4 copies of Field of Ruin. Even though there are going to be instances where it's important to keep the mana open to use, don't be afraid to use your Field of Ruins to trigger off another landfall, but just be mindful of how many basic lands you already have on the field, because you also don't want to strip yourself of resources. And finally, 1 copy of Castle Vantress. Castle Vantress just helps us again do what Temple of Mystery does, which is scrying to help fix our draws. But that's basically going to be it for the land base. Yes, you can make this more budget, which we will talk about at the end of the video, but there's a reason why I wanted to fixate this on more of a jank versus budget roll. Originally, I designed this deck more of a best of 1, but in case if you want to take it into a best of 3, I kind of throw together real quick just what I think might be helpful for you for this deck. Narset, Parter of the Veils is just basically here as a catch-all, just to prevent your opponent from drawing cards and outdoing you in terms of value, and also the -2, of course, just helps you dig for your combo pieces. Song of Freyalise does look a little weird here, but if you need to have instances where you want to focus less on the milling and more on the Scute Swarm, this is actually really good. Being able to turn all of your insects into mana dorks to help just pull out all of your value out of your deck, whether it's drawing cards, putting down more lands to trigger off landfall, really helps out. And if it does survive to the 3rd part of the saga, being able to add counters on all of your Scutes and then giving them Vigilance, Trample, and Indestructible usually can mean a game-ending win for you. Scavenging Ooze is mostly here as your graveyard hate. This basically is just here just for those decks that like to run the cat oven strategies. Heroic Intervention is mostly here just to help you protect your combo pieces. Again, just more redundancy since it gives your entire board hexproof and indestructible. And finally, of course, extra counter spells in the form of a negate just to back up the plan even further. So again, this is going to be one of those decks where you don't want to over sideboard. Just bring in one of your key pieces from the side to bring into the main deck, whether you need to take out the milling plan, you need to take out the Scute Swarm plan, just to ensure that you can still pull off a victory. But that's basically it for the sideboard. Nothing too fancy there. If you actually have better suggestions than me, by all means, put them out there. I literally put this together in like a couple minutes just based upon what I think the deck was weak on. We're actually now going to go over to Sparky and show you 2 different versions of how to win with this deck. Okay, and here we go, guys. We are playing some Rootin' Tootin' Swarm Scootin' Yee Claw! Okay, I think everybody now just ran away from the video. But you know what? I don't care. I thought that was kind of hilarious. Also, it gave me an excuse to put up this cute little meme. I like that. Yeah, you guys like that. Anyways, getting back to the match. Okay, so let's look at what we are trying to do here. So, Scute Swarm. We have that. We have Growth Spiral, Explorer. So we have ways of building up lands. This is great, actually. Let's keep this. Now, let's see. I really would like to keep the Glasspool Mimic, but we want to ensure that we can still get off the Scute Swarm. So this time, we're just going to use it as a land. Put it in tapped. Now, our other payoff, as you remember, is going to be the Crab. If we can get the Crab, this actually would be ideal, but we don't otherwise have anything else going on. You have an option here where you can either put down the Forest, and you can explore Growth Spiral, build up a 3rd land, but we want also the lands to trigger off Scute Swarm. So let's do this instead. Put down the Forest. We're going to foretell the Sod coming. And this way we can then use this at a later time against Sparky here. Ooh, we got a Crab. We put down the land. We put down the land first. You would lose the trigger if you don't put down the Crab. On the other hand, we could put down the Scute Swarm. and we can start building up an army there too. You have a couple options here. So this is actually going to come down to what you need to do versus your opponent. So let's do this instead. Put down the pathway, Scoot Swarm, number 1, and hopefully it sticks. Now, all we just need to do is hopefully get another land. We get another land, then we're in business here. Oh my goodness. We actually have options here. Ugh. Okay, let's do this. I'm going to put down a crab. You have one of each now, which is great. Let's explore. Please land. Oh. We have all of our payoffs. This is awkward. All of our payoffs, none of our lands. We have 26 lands in this deck, so we should be hitting lands pretty consistently. Well, Glassbolt Mimics technically counts. All right, first off, let's... actually, how do we do this? How do we want to do this? Let's put down a crab. Crab number 2. In regular matches, just keep in mind it probably won't ever go this way, but you never know. All right. Get that land trigger. All right, here we go. The swarm grows. The crabs are milling. Oh, see, you can see that right there. They got the murder. So that's what I'm anticipating that from Sparky. Obviously, no attacks. And we pass. All right, shields down. If Sparky wants to blow up any of our creatures, this is the turn to do it. But they are building up a board, which is going to be a little bit of a problem for us eventually. We can still sponge hits for now. Remember, for this deck, you don't want to be attacking in the early going. You just want to start putting down your stuff. Let's get down to 3rd crab since we can afford... Oh, actually... you have options here. If we put down the Scoot Swarm, we can't do anything else for the turn. On the other hand, you can put down a crab, you can growth spiral, but then you lose mana on the sod coming if you need to protect your creatures. Let's play it safe. Growth spiral. Oh. This is not working out for us. Okay, we're just going to pass. We still have time. This deck can be explosive once everything goes off. But we're not there yet. So let's just hold off for a little bit longer. We can afford to take damage for the time being. You know what? Let's growth spiral again. Come on. Give me something. Okay, that's fine. We'll take that. All right. Here we go. The swarm finally starts growing again. The crab starts milling. This is what you want. Ooh, okay. All right, we're slowly getting there. Again, you've got options here. So let's put down our 2nd Scoot Swarm. Temple. There we go. More triggers. Whew. Oh, man. More milling. Look at that. All right, we're halfway through their deck. Oh, great, great. We'll take that 2nd Temple of Mystery. Thank you very much. We'll keep mana open so we can still protect our plan. Again, only block if you really are low on life and you need to survive a little bit longer. So for now, it's just going to be Sparky. Yeah, Sparky's going to attack again. We'll take one more hit here. They have enough creatures now where we're going to have to start blocking in another turn if anything else happens. Okay, so let's see. Now that we have enough on the field, let's put down our 3rd Ruin Crab. It's rare this happens because, again, expect everything to get blown up. Temple. Woo-wee! Look at those triggers. Shoot. Look at all that. Boom. All of that milling. Sure. Let's take another temple. This is so slow, but okay, we'll take it. We're almost there. We're almost there. We can get both ways. You know what? Since this is basically it, let's just saw it coming. We'll counter that because we can. There we go. How many cards do they have left? 18. Ooh, we're close. Oh my goodness, those triggers. All of those little cute little bugs going off. All of that milling. This is what you want the deck to do. But man, we... Is that our 4th temple in a row? What is with this? Oh, jeez. You know, we're just going to keep it. I don't even care anymore. I honestly wanted us to show off the Scuteshift, but we didn't get it this game. But that's okay. Marky just helplessly attacking at this point. All right. Woo! Again, this is what this deck does. You get off all those landfall triggers. You get those crabs down. The milling continues. And that's it. That is it. Okay, so here's the game plan, guys. We're going to put in this Fable Passage. We'll crack it. We will get multiple triggers off and then we can finish them off with Escape Shift. This is basically what you want the deck to do. Fable Passage. Here we go. Look at that. That's 9 cards into the yard, and now we have them in range. This is perfect. This is absolutely perfect. Watch. Here's what I'm talking about. Crack your Fable Passage. Get that forest out. Boom, there's the triggers. All right. And then Escape Shift time. Now, since we're going to win, just blow up all your lands. Nothing you can do. All right. And at this point, it doesn't really matter what you get because everything's just going to come in tapped. Now, watch the triggers go off. Oh, yes. And remember, all of those is times 3. So basically, at this point, you're done. You've got them. Oh, my goodness. This is fantastic. Yes. Sure. It doesn't matter. We've already milled them out. No attacks. We got you, Sparky. All right, that's the alternate way to win with the Scuteshift deck. So there you go, milling them using Escape Shift, and that's it. All right, let's go over an alternate way to play this deck. Now, normally, again, as I said earlier, this is where I go over the upgrades to the deck, but this deck already is technically an upgrade. It's obviously a non-budget deck. So instead, let's go over what you can do to make it a budget deck. First off, your Fable Passage becomes Evolving Wilds. Your rare dual lands just become the common tap lands. Mirror Image replaces the Glasspool Mimic. Root Snare and Lassatop Plating would replace in your sideboard the Heroic Intervention. And Soul Guide Lantern would replace as your graveyard hate the Scavenging Ooze. One spicy option that I would consider also is maybe a copy of Litjara Mirror Lake. As you see right here, it enters in tapped, which is unfortunate, but if you do manage to get this off, for 5 mana and tapped and sacrificing this land, you get to create a token that's a copy of a target creature you control, except it enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. So you can then turn this into a very expensive crab if you need another copy or an extra Scoot Swarm. The only thing I would say is if you do want to make a budget version of this deck, you really need to keep at least minimum the Scoot Swarm. That's the one card that you really need. If you take that out, the crabs might have a hard time on their own carrying this whole deck. But that's pretty much all I got for you in terms of a budget option. And there you have it, partners. That's all we got for you today regarding Scuteshift. Sorry, I don't know why I went into the Texan accent again. But anyways, what do you guys think? Is this the kind of jank that you guys like for me to do more of? Because I actually had a lot of fun putting this together. Again, I try to make decks that are more budget focused, but this one, I couldn't help it. This was completely jank that I actually haven't seen too many people play yet, and it actually cracks me up when this deck goes off. If you have already considered something different to do with Ruin Crab or Scoot Swarm, consider this deck. I can guarantee you if you manage to pull off the Escape Shift win, it is a hilariously fun win. I've seen many opponents that see me pull off the Ruin Crab with the Escape Shift, then they immediately concede once they see what the triggers are. The only thing I do want to remind you is, yes, it is an expensive deck. However, the bonus part of this is if you do craft most of it, most of the rares are in the land base, and those actually are at least going to be useful for you for other decks. But that's all I got. What do you guys think? Is this the kind of style of deck that you like to do? Do you like alternate win cons where you can just beat your opponent out of nowhere with one card such as Escape Shift? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear from you guys. But aside from that, thanks again for watching, guys. Be sure to like and subscribe if I helped you out, you learned something, or at least entertained you. And remember that no matter what you do play in the game of life, always be sure to burn bright. Later.